At a crowded urban park in Seattle, a little girl sat tied in the back of an old SUV. Rain on her cheeks, fear in her eyes, her tiny wrists bound so tightly she couldn't even lift her hands. Dozens of joggers walked past her without noticing a thing. Not one person realized the danger, sitting right in front of them. Her captor stood only a few feet away, pretending everything was normal. She didn't scream for help. She couldn't. The man who took her had warned her never to make a sound. But she had one chance left. One tiny signal no human would ever notice. She tapped her heel once, twice against the plastic cargo floor. A sound softer than a heartbeat. Too quiet for humans. Too small to notice. And somehow the 14 police dogs heard it. Their ears snapped upward, their bodies stiffened. Then without a single command, they sprang into action, sprinting straight toward her. Something was terribly wrong, and only the dogs knew it. What happened next would expose a secret that shook the entire world. Before we start, make sure to hit like and subscribe. And really, I'm curious, where are you watching from? Drop your country name in the comments. I love seeing how far our stories travel. The city stretched endlessly in every direction. A vast ocean of concrete shimmering under the early evening drizzle. The street cut through it like a busy, crowded river of wet pavement. Cars came and went, their engines humming softly before disappearing into the traffic again. Everything about this park felt ordinary, almost too ordinary. A couple of joggers rested in the shelter of a coffee cart awning, sipping hot drinks. A vendor sat on a bench, scrolling through his phone. A family unloaded snacks from their minivan. It was peaceful, calm, and painfully unaware of what was about to unfold. At the edge of the parking lot sat an old black SUV. Rust clung to its sides like dried mud, and its back tires rested in the puddles as if it had been there far too long. To anyone passing by, it seemed abandoned, forgotten by its owner. But inside the cargo area, hidden behind the tinted glass windows that shielded her from sight, was a little girl. She lay curled in the back. Rain smudged across her cheeks, her knees pulled tightly to her chest. Her small wrists were bound together with rough rope, leaving faint red marks around her skin. Fear clung to her like a second layer of clothing. Every time she dared to move, the rope dug deeper, reminding her she was trapped. Alone, silent, and unseen. She listened carefully to the world around her. Footsteps, doors closing, car engines humming, voices too far away to help her. She wanted to scream, to call out, to beg someone, anyone, to look her way. But the moment she tried, her throat tightened. The sound died before it even touched her tongue. She couldn't risk it. She couldn't let him hear. The man who put her here had warned her what would happen if she made noise. She believed him. But even in her fear, something inside her refused to give up. She scanned the park, searching for one break, one opportunity, and then she saw them. 14 German shepherds, police dogs, strong, disciplined, resting in the grass beside their handlers. Some sat, some lay with their tongues out. Others watched the path with sharp, precise focus, but all of them radiated a power she had only seen in videos. She knew police dogs were trained to protect people. She knew they could help her, if only she could somehow reach them. She inhaled shakily. Her hands trembled. She didn't have a voice. She didn't have freedom. But she had one tiny chance, and she was about to take it. The little girl pressed her back against the cold plastic of the cargo floor, the rough rope biting into her skin as she struggled to sit upright. Every movement felt heavy, shaky, as if fear itself had wrapped around her bones. But she forced herself to look toward the park again. The police dogs were still there. 14 German shepherds lined up near their handlers, resting but alert, their ears twitching at every subtle sound carried across the city wind. If she could get their attention, even for a second, someone might notice her. Someone might help. But she couldn't scream. She couldn't wave her hands. She couldn't even stand. She needed something small, something quiet, something only the right eyes could catch. With trembling fingers, she slowly shifted her tied wrists until the rope scraped against the plastic floor. The faint rasp, barely a whisper, was swallowed almost instantly by the wind and the noise of passing cars. No human would ever have heard it. She knew that, but the dogs might. She pressed her hands again. Rasp, rasp, rasp. A tiny rhythm, a tiny call for help. At first, nothing happened. The girl's heart sank. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe the dogs wouldn't hear it. Maybe. Then it happened. The oldest of the canines, massive, scarred. A veteran with deep amber eyes lifted his head. His ears pricked sharply forward. His breathing stilled. His gaze fixed on the black SUV. The girl froze. The dog stood. Another beside him lifted its head too, and then another, and another. A silent chain reaction. 14 powerful animals suddenly locked onto the SUV like they were seeing something no one else could. One of the handlers, Officer Ramirez, glanced down at the dogs in confusion. "What's gotten into you?" he muttered. But the canines didn't look at him. Their focus was unbreakable. The girl swallowed hard and tried again. She tapped the cargo floor twice with her heel. A tiny, almost invisible movement. Again, no human noticed, but the dogs reacted instantly. All 14 heads snapped to the same point, the back of the SUV. Their bodies grew tense, tails stiff, chests rising in silent alarm. Ramirez frowned. "Guys, what are you seeing?" The dogs leaned forward, noses opening, trying to catch whatever unseen clue had triggered them. Their ears strained, their breaths quickened, and then the lead canine, the old veteran, let out a single sound. Not a bark, not a growl, a low, urgent woof, the alert call he only used when something was deeply, dangerously wrong. The handlers stiffened. The little girl's heart pounded. The dogs had heard her. They had understood her. And now they were coming. The moment the old veteran K9 released that low, urgent woof, the air around the park shifted. It was subtle, almost invisible, like the snap of a thread no one realized had been holding everything together. 1 second, the dogs were resting in neat rows beside their handlers, and the next every muscle in their bodies coiled as if preparing for battle. Their handlers barely had time to react. "Rex, what is it, boy?" Officer Ramirez asked, reaching for the dog's harness. But Rex didn't wait. He lunged forward, and the rest followed. 14 German shepherds exploded across the grass in perfect unison, kicking up puddles of water as they sprinted toward the black SUV. Their paws pounded the ground with thunderous urgency, ears pinned forward, eyes burning with laser focus. They didn't bark, didn't snarl. This wasn't aggression. This was purpose, pure instinct, pure training, pure alert. "Whoa, hey, stop! Hold formation!" another handler shouted. But the dogs didn't slow. They tore past picnic tables, startled joggers, and parked cars as if the world around them had ceased to exist. People screamed. A woman dropped her cup. A man jumped backward, thinking the dogs were charging at him. But Rex never wavered. He raced straight toward the cargo area, his breath sharp and fast, water flying beneath each stride. The others followed in a perfect V formation behind him, their bodies moving like a single unstoppable wave. Ramirez's heart thudded in his chest. "Something's wrong, really wrong," he shouted, as he and the other officers sprinted after the pack, trying desperately to catch up. The little girl in the SUV heard the pounding footsteps. At first, she thought it was the kidnapper returning, her breath caught, fear tightening her chest. But when she peeked over the glass edge, her eyes widened. The dogs were coming. all of them racing toward her like a storm. Her breath hitched with a mixture of hope and terror. She pressed her bound hands to her chest, unsure whether to cry or hide. But Rex's eyes, sharp, fierce, and deeply protective, locked onto hers from yards away. He knew. He had understood her signal. And now he was fighting the world to reach her. As the pack thundered closer, one of the dogs let out a piercing bark, an alarm so sharp it froze every jogger in place. Gasps echoed. "Is someone hurt?" a man yelled. "What are they running toward?" a woman shouted. Ramirez already knew the answer. "The SUV!" he shouted breathlessly. "They're going to the SUV!" And as Rex reached the cargo area and leapt up with a single powerful jump, everything changed. The roar of pounding paws hit the park before anyone understood what was happening. Water spiraled into the air as 14 German shepherds charged across the parking lot, their bodies low, their eyes blazing with alarm. Joggers froze mid-step, drinks slipping from hands, conversations dying instantly as the pack thundered past. A mother pulled her children behind her. An elderly man stumbled backward, heart racing. A group of teenagers jumped onto a bench, shouting, "Why are the police dogs running? What's happening?" No one had answers, only fear. The handlers sprinted behind the dogs, breathless and struggling to keep up. "Rex, heel!" Officer Ramirez shouted, but his voice was swallowed by chaos. The K-9s didn't even glance back. Whatever they sensed was urgent enough to override every command they had ever been trained to obey. Rex reached the black SUV first. He launched himself onto the cargo area with a heavy thud, claws scraping plastic as he landed beside the terrified little girl. The moment he saw her tied wrists, his entire posture changed. His ears flattened, his tail stiffened, his chest rumbled with a low, protective growl. Not at her, but at whatever danger was close. The rest of the dogs surrounded the SUV in a tight, circular formation. They stood shoulder to shoulder, creating a living shield around the girl. Anyone unfamiliar with K-9 behavior would think they were preparing to attack. But their stance told a different story. This was defense. This was protection. This was a warning to the world. Stay back. Something is wrong. But the crowd didn't understand. A woman screamed, "Someone get those dogs under control." Another panicked man shouted, "They're going to hurt someone." Ramirez skidded to a stop, chest heaving, when he saw the little girl in the cargo area, Rainy, trembling, wrists tied with rope. His blood ran cold. "Oh my God," he whispered, eyes widening. "They weren't attacking. They were responding." An officer beside him gasped. "How long has she been in there?" Ramirez took a slow step forward, hands raised to show he meant no harm. "Easy, boys. Good boys. Let me see her." But the dogs refused to move, not until they were sure she was safe. The crowd murmured anxiously, filming on their phones, whispering theories. Is this a kidnapping? Was she abandoned? Did someone do this to her here? The girl looked at the officers, tears glistening on her cheeks. She wanted to speak, to beg for help, but fear had paralyzed her voice. Rex stepped closer, pressing his head gently against her knees. A soft whimper escaped her lips. And that was when the officers realized she wasn't just scared. She was in danger. Real, immediate danger. And whoever put her here might still be close. Ramirez lifted his hands higher, palms open as he approached the SUV, like someone stepping toward a wounded animal. 14 police dogs towered around the cargo area, shoulders locked, muscles tense, eyes burning with unwavering focus. They weren't just guarding. They were warning everyone to stay back until they understood the threat. Rex stood closest to the girl, his body angled protectively in front of her. His tail was still, not wagging, an unmistakable sign of a dog on high alert. His eyes flicked between the officers and the tree line, watching for danger only he seemed to sense. Ramirez swallowed hard as he finally reached the tailgate. "Easy, boy. Let me help her," he murmured. Rex didn't move. He only shifted slightly, enough for Ramirez to see her fully, and what he saw made his chest tighten. The little girl sat curled in the corner of the cargo area, her knees pulled close, her wrists tied together with a rough brown rope that cut into her skin. The knots were tight, too tight for a child to escape. Dirt smudged her face. Tear tracks streaked. She looked dehydrated, exhausted, terrified. A gasp rippled through the officers behind him. "Oh God, she's tied up. This is bad. This is really bad." The girl flinched at the voices, shrinking further into the plastic wall behind her. She wanted to speak. She tried, but only a soft, broken sound left her lips. Fear choked every word she attempted. Ramirez's voice softened. "Sweetheart, you're safe now. No one here is going to hurt you. Can you tell me your name?" He reached forward cautiously. Rex let out a sharp, warning growl, not at Ramirez, but at something else. His eyes weren't on the officer. They were fixed on the open tree line behind the park. Ramirez froze. "What is it, boy?" The other dogs stiffened one by one, their ears shooting upward, their bodies rigid. Something in the air changed. An electric tension, a silent alarm only they could hear. But Ramirez forced himself to focus on the girl first. Her wrists needed freeing. Her safety came before everything else. He raised his hands again. "Okay, Rex, I'm just cutting the rope. All right, that's all." Very slowly, very gently, he reached over the cargo area with a pocket knife. Careful not to startle her, the girl whimpered softly as the blade slid under the rope. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you. You're okay." With a quick motion, the rope snapped. The girl gasped as her hands fell free. But before Ramirez could ask another question, Rex growled again, louder, sharper. And this time, all 14 dogs turned toward the same direction at once. Something, or someone, was coming. The rope fell to the floor of the cargo area like a dead snake. And for a moment, the world went strangely quiet. The girl pulled her hands against her chest, rubbing her sore wrists gently as if trying to convince herself she was actually free. But freedom didn't erase fear. Her breathing came in small, shaky bursts. Her eyes darted from Ramirez to Rex, to the empty tree line where the dogs now stared with unblinking intensity. Ramirez crouched beside the SUV, keeping his voice low and warm. "You're okay now, sweetheart. No one's going to hurt you. You're safe with us." She swallowed hard. Her lips quivered. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. No sound, just a sharp, painful tremble that shook her entire body. "It's all right, honey," another officer said gently. "Take your time." But the girl wasn't silent by choice. Fear had wrapped around her throat, locking her voice inside. She shook her head helplessly, tears welling in her already swollen eyes. She tried again, just a whisper, just one word. But it dissolved before reaching the air. Rex gently pressed his head against her leg, nudging her with surprising tenderness. His touch wasn't forceful. It was grounding, like he was reminding her she wasn't alone anymore. She touched his fur with trembling fingers. For the first time since she'd been taken, she felt something warm, something steady. Her breath softened, though her voice remained trapped. Ramirez watched her closely. Hey, look at me." He waited until her weary eyes met his. "Did someone bring you here? Someone dangerous?" he asked quietly. The girl's chin trembled. She nodded. Ramirez felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Is he close?" he whispered. She didn't nod. She didn't shake her head. Instead, her shaking hand lifted and pointed not at the officers, not at the crowd, at the tree line behind the park, at the exact place all 14 dogs were staring. Ramirez's pulse hammered. He exchanged glances with the other handlers, all of whom had turned serious, hands drifting to their holsters. The canines tense like a row of coiled springs. Not one dog broke focus. Not one blinked. Rex suddenly climbed from the cargo area and planted himself directly in front of the girl, body forming a protective barrier. His growl deepened, vibrating through the plastic beneath them. "She's trying to warn us," Ramirez whispered. "He's here or he's coming back." The girl clutched her hands together, still unable to speak. But her eyes, wide, terrified, told them everything they needed to know. The threat wasn't gone. It was approaching. Ramirez straightened slowly, every nerve in his body tightening as the girl's trembling finger remained pointed toward the open tree line behind the park. The rain haze rose in wavering lines above the grass, distorting the horizon like a boiling mirage. Nothing moved out there. No cars, no shadows, no sound except the distant hum of the street. But the dogs sensed something, and that meant danger was real. "Fan out," Ramirez ordered quietly, his voice tight. "Search the perimeter. Someone did this to her, and he might still be watching." The officers nodded, splitting into teams. 2 circled toward the dumpsters. 2 scanned behind the coffee cart. Others began checking the far edges of the parking lot, eyes narrowed, hands resting on their weapons. The canine handlers loosened their grips, allowing the dogs to move freely. Immediately, the pack split. 7 dogs stayed guarding the girl in a tight, protective ring, forming an unbreakable wall of fur and muscle around the SUV. The other 7 lowered their noses to the wind, sniffing deep, searching for the scent that had triggered their alarm. Rex let out a sharp breath through his nose and leaned forward, drawing in every particle of air he could catch. Then he turned his head slightly, narrowed his eyes, and growled low. Ramirez followed his gaze. Footprints barely visible in the mud, half covered by the rain, but unmistakable deep impressions leading away from the SUV toward a small cluster of trees behind the park. Whoever made them had been here recently. Very recently. "Over here," Ramirez called. Officers jogged over, scanning the ground. "These weren't made long ago," one muttered. "He had to be watching us. Why leave her tied up?" another whispered. Ramirez knew the answer before anyone spoke. He planned to come back. The realization hit him like a punch. This wasn't abandonment. This wasn't random. The kidnapper had left the girl in the SUV and moved into the tree line to wait, watching her struggle, watching the park, waiting for the right moment to take her again. Then the girl had tried to signal for help, and the dogs had noticed. The kidnapper must have seen the reaction, must have watched 14 police dogs sprint toward the SUV, must have panicked. And now he was hiding somewhere close. The officers followed the prints deeper into the mud. A half-empty water bottle lay discarded behind a bush. Tire tracks curved inconsistently, as if someone had turned their vehicle around fast, then stopped again. A torn piece of fabric flapped weakly on a jagged branch. Dark, dirty, maybe from a jacket. Ramirez crouched, touching it. The fabric was still damp. "He's here," he whispered. One of the canines barked, short, sharp, urgent. Rex stiffened, ears pricking, muscles quivering with readiness. The girl huddled deeper inside the cargo area, eyes wide with renewed terror. And for the first time since this began, the officers realized they weren't looking for a suspect. They were being watched by one. The city wind shifted just slightly, but for the canines, that tiny movement was enough. 7 of the dogs, still guarding the little girl, stiffened in unison. Their hackles rose, their ears snapped toward the same direction, the tree cluster behind the park. Rex growled low, but this time he didn't stay put. He stepped off the cargo area, turning back once to check on the girl. She clutched the edge of the plastic. Fear etched into every line of her face. Rex nudged her knee softly, a promise, a reassurance before joining the other search dogs. Ramirez watched him go, breath tight in his chest. "He's got something," he muttered. "Let them lead." The 7 search K9s spread out like a perfectly trained tactical unit, their noses lowered, sniffing deep into the mud, following a scent trail the officers couldn't see. Every few steps, one dog would pause, ears twitching, then shift slightly, correcting course like a living compass. An officer jogged beside them. "This trail is fresh," he said, scanning the ground. "He didn't run far." "No," Ramirez answered. "He didn't run at all." Because the zigzag pattern in the prints wasn't from fleeing. It was from circling, watching, waiting, a hunting pattern. The officers swallowed hard at the realization. The kidnapper wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to return. The 7K9s picked up speed, weaving between trees, diving through brush, noses twitching with heightened urgency. Rex led the charge, tail straight, eyes locked on the shifting scent. He let out a sharp bark, one that made the other dogs accelerate instantly. "They found something," Ramirez said, running faster. The ground changed near the cluster. Mud disturbed, branches shifted, a boot print partially crushed beneath a layer of leaves. A broken twig, a dropped wrapper, a faint indentation where someone had been crouching. "Look at this," an officer whispered, pointing at the trees. "He was hiding right here, watching us the whole time." Rex let out a deep, vibrating growl. His nose hovered inches above the dirt, drawing in scent after scent. Then, with a sudden jerk of his head, he bolted to the left, pulling the entire search team with him. He wasn't confused. He wasn't guessing. He had the scent. Ramirez's pulse hammered. "Stay with them. Stay tight." The officers followed as the dogs dashed toward a narrow path behind the cluster. Mud clouded around their legs. Footprints grew clearer. The trail curved sharply, then disappeared behind a larger tree, swallowed by shadow. Rex skidded to a stop, muscles rigid, teeth bared. The others formed a semicircle, barking fiercely at whatever lay behind the trunk. And in that moment, every officer knew. The dogs hadn't just found a scent. They had cornered something or someone. The officers moved cautiously toward the tree. But as the dogs growled into the shadows, the little girl back at the SUV curled into herself, trembling. Her breathing tightened. Her eyes flickered with memories she had tried desperately to bury. And just like that, the world around her faded. The park, the police dogs, the officers, all of it dissolved into a different moment, a moment she could never escape. It had been afternoon. Warm. Safe. She remembered riding in the back seat of her mother's car, humming to herself, hugging her stuffed rabbit. They had stopped at this very park for a quick bathroom break. Her mother smiled and said, "Stay close, baby, don't wander." She didn't, not on purpose. She had washed her hands, looked up at herself in the mirror, eyes bright, ponytail a little crooked, and stepped outside into the sunlight. Her mother was just a few feet ahead, reaching for her phone. Then she heard it. A faint, desperate whimper. Puppy. The sound froze her in place. Behind the restroom building, from the edge of the maintenance shed, she heard it again. A soft, pitiful cry. She adored dogs. She watched police dog videos every night before bed. Her small heart couldn't ignore it. She walked toward the sound. Just a peek, she told herself. Just a look. Maybe a puppy was hurt. Maybe it needed help. But when she rounded the corner, there was no puppy. Only a man. Tall, dirty jacket, greasy hair, eyes too still. He smiled, a thin, chilling curve that never reached his eyes. "You hear it too?" he asked softly. "The puppy? He's scared. He needs you." She backed up a step. That made him smile wider. He moved fast, a hand over her mouth, a rag pressed to her nose, a whisper in her ear. "Don't fight." The world spun. Her legs weakened. She tried to scream, but the sound stayed trapped inside her. The sun blurred into streaks of white. Her mother's voice called her name once, just once, before everything went dark. When she woke, she was in the back of the old black SUV, hands tied, mouth dry, heart pounding. The man sat in the driver's seat, rummaging through a backpack. She pretended to sleep, her chest rising and falling in small, controlled breaths. Maybe if she stayed still, he would leave. Maybe she could escape. But then he turned. His eyes were cold, calculating. "You're going to stay quiet," he said. "If you scream, I come back. If you try to escape, I come back. If someone sees you, I come back." He pulled the cover halfway over her. Then he walked away. She stared at the sky through the cargo opening, tears pooling, but never falling. She didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe too loud. She waited. Minutes felt like hours, hours like days. The rain started falling. No one looked inside the SUV until she saw them. The police dogs. And something inside her sparked. A memory of a video. Canines can detect danger before humans. So she moved her toes, scraped the rope, tapped the plastic, and prayed they would hear her. The flashback faded. The girl jolted back into the present. Tears spilling freely, she gripped the edge of the cargo area as if anchoring herself to reality again. And far across the park, the dogs' growls deepened. They had found the place where it all began. The growls echoing off the cluster sharpened every officer's instincts. Ramirez signaled for caution, his hands slicing through the damp air as he approached the tree with slow, deliberate steps. The 7 tracking K9s tightened their formation, surrounding the shadowed corner like soldiers closing in on a bunker. Rex took the lead, body low, ears pinned forward, nose twitching violently, then a rustle, a scrape against bark. Rex barked, a deep bark that shook leaves from the tree's branches. The officers froze. "Hands where we can see them!" someone shouted. A figure stumbled out from behind the trunk, thin, jittery, wearing a sweat-stained hoodie and baggy jeans. His eyes were wide, frantic, darting between the officers and the growling dogs circling him. I didn't do anything," he cried, raising trembling hands. I swear I was just resting. I live out here sometimes, okay?" The dogs didn't relax, not even a little. Rex lunged forward, stopping inches from biting distance. The man yelped, nearly falling backward. 2 officers grabbed Rex's harness just in case. But the dog wasn't attacking. He was sniffing, assessing, judging. "Why are you hiding?" an officer demanded. "I wasn't hiding," the man babbled. "I heard yelling. I got scared. These dogs came at me like I killed somebody." Ramirez stepped closer, eyes narrowed. He scanned the man from head to toe. No mud matching the footprints they followed. No rope fibers on his clothes. Shoes too small, wrong pattern, wrong direction. This wasn't the one. But he was nervous about something. That part was clear. Ramirez crouched eye level with Rex. "Is this him?" he asked quietly. Rex didn't bark, didn't growl. He simply turned and walked away. The rest of the search K9s followed. The suspect released a shaky breath. "See, I told you I didn't do anything." "We'll need your ID," an officer muttered. But Ramirez had already tuned him out. The dogs were on the move again, fast this time, as if the wrong man had only sharpened their senses. They sprinted past the dumpsters, through the narrow path behind the coffee cart, noses glued to the earth. Mud flew behind them like smoke. The scent trail was strengthening. Ramirez's stomach tightened. "If the wrong man was hiding here," he whispered to another handler. "Where's the right one?" Rex stopped so suddenly that the officers nearly collided with him. His head snapped upward, nostrils flaring. Then he let out a sound none of them had heard all day. A howl, long, low, warning the universe itself. Something dangerous was close, something far worse than the nervous man behind the trunk and the real kidnapper. He was no longer running. He was circling back. A thick, uneasy stillness settled over the park, the kind that crawls across the skin like a warning. Even the wind seemed to stop moving, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Rex stood frozen, his body carved from tension, nose pointed toward the street. The other K9s mirrored him, silent, rigid, waiting. Ramirez scanned the open road. "What is it, boy?" he whispered. Then he heard it, a distant rumble. Low at first, growing louder, a vibration rolling through the wet pavement. A vehicle fast, too fast. The handlers rushed toward the edge of the lot as a silver sedan shot into view, kicking water behind it like a storm cloud. The engine's roar echoed off the street lamps and metal benches. The sedan swerved violently, sending joggers scrambling out of its path. "Hey, watch it!" someone screamed. But the vehicle didn't slow. Ramirez's eyes widened. His hand flew to his holster. "Everyone back, move!" The sedan fishtailed, tires screeching as it whipped into the parking lot. It raced straight toward the black SUV, straight toward the girl still sitting inside. The K9s reacted instantly. All 14 of them erupted into barks. Ferocious, explosive, unified. The 7 guarding her closed ranks around the SUV, bodies forming a wall of muscle and teeth. One leaped onto the tailgate, planting himself like a shield between the girl and the incoming threat. The sedan slammed to a stop so hard the front bumper dipped. Water billowed around it. A moment of silence, tense, electric, hung in the air. Then the driver's door flew open. A man stepped out. Tall, hard eyes, filthy jacket, the wrong smile, the same smile the girl remembered from the maintenance shed. Her breath stopped. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs. She curled into herself, clutching her arms. "It's him!" she whispered, voice barely audible, but Rex heard it. He snarled so viciously the sound vibrated through the plastic cargo floor. The man raised his hand slowly, not scared, calculating. "Easy now," he said with a smirk. "Doggies need to calm down. I'm just here for what's mine." Ramirez stepped forward. "Gun where I can see them." The man didn't flinch. "You've got something that belongs to me. She's not yours," Ramirez growled. "Step back from the vehicle." The man chuckled, dark and cold. "You think you've stopped anything? You think she's the only one?" The implication sent a chill through everyone listening, but the girl's reaction was worse. She shook her head violently, tears spilling. "No," she whispered, finally forcing her voice through her terror. "Don't let him take me, please." That desperate plea was the last thing the man needed to hear. He lunged toward the SUV. Rex launched off the cargo like a missile. 14 dogs followed, and the real battle began. The kidnapper lunged toward the SUV with a speed that felt unreal, like a shadow slicing through rainfall. His boots slammed against the pavement, sending puddles scattering beneath him as he sprinted forward. The girl's scream cracked through the air, thin and terrified, but she was too weak, too drained to do anything except reach hopelessly toward Rex. Rex didn't hesitate. He launched off the cargo area with explosive force, his paws hitting the ground in a blur. His bark tore through the air like thunder. The other dogs responded instantly, 14 bodies moving as one coordinated storm. "Take cover," an officer shouted, pulling bystanders behind cars. The man swung something, metal glinting in the rain. Maybe a tool, maybe a weapon. It didn't matter. The dogs didn't fear it. Rex closed the distance first, teeth bared. But instead of biting, he lunged at the man's wrist, knocking the weapon aside with precise surgical force. The man stumbled back, surprised by the sheer intelligence of the move. 2 K9s flanked him, cutting off his escape route. A third blocked the path to the SUV. The man snarled, "Get away!" and swung again. But the dog slipped aside with fluid, practiced motion. Ramirez sprinted forward. "Drop to the ground now!" The man didn't. He pivoted, desperate, trying to push past the wall of dogs forming around him, his hands stretched toward the tailgate, toward the girl. Rex growled, a deep, dangerous vibration that froze everyone around. The kidnapper tried to shove Rex aside. Huge mistake. Rex rammed his shoulder into the man's chest, sending him crashing into the side of the sedan. The impact made him gasp, but still he fought. He pushed off the car, grabbed a handful of mud, flung it toward the dogs. The dirt clouded their eyes for a moment, but for a moment was all he got because the other K9s surged forward. One clamped onto his jacket sleeve, pulling him off balance. Another bit down on his pant leg, not enough to maim, but enough to drop him to one knee. A third planted its paws on his chest, pinning him down with brutal efficiency. The man thrashed wildly, yelling curses, spitting rain, kicking his legs, but he couldn't break free. Ramirez rushed in, weapon drawn. "Hands behind your head! Do it now!" The dogs didn't let up until the kidnapper finally stopped fighting, until the adrenaline drained from his limbs, until the weight of 14 trained K9s and 10 armed officers crushed the last flicker of escape. Finally, Ramirez grabbed him, forced his arms behind his back, and slapped handcuffs onto his wrists. "It's over," Ramirez growled. "No," the man hissed through gritted teeth, smirking through the blood on his lip. "It's not over. You don't know what she is." Rex barked in his face so violently the man flinched. Officers dragged him away, but his last words echoed ominously in the air. The girl huddled in the SUV, trembling as the K9s surrounded her once more. The danger was over, but the mystery wasn't. The kidnapper's words still hung in the damp city air, dark, cryptic, unsettling. Officers dragged him toward a patrol vehicle, his twisted smile lingering even after he disappeared behind the wall of bodies. But the park wasn't watching him anymore. All eyes were on the little girl. She sat in the cargo area, knees pulled close, arms wrapped tightly around herself. Her breaths were quick, uneven, as if the terror inside her had finally found a crack to escape through. The dogs formed a half circle around her once again, this time calmer, protective, steady, waiting. Rex climbed back into the cargo area, nudging her gently with his muzzle. She flinched at first, then melted slightly under his touch, her tiny fingers curled into his fur. His warmth helped her breathe again. Ramirez approached slowly, crouching so he wouldn't tower over her. "Hey," he whispered softly. "You're safe now. He can't hurt you anymore." The girl swallowed hard. Tears welled in her eyes. For a moment she tried to speak. Her lips parted, chest trembling. Then her voice cracked into nothing but a thin gasp. "It's okay," Ramirez murmured. "Take your time. We're not going anywhere." She looked at the officers, at the K9s, at Rex, who hadn't moved since the moment she touched him. And something inside her broke open. The words came in sharp, trembling fragments. He told me if I called for help, he'd come back." Ramirez nodded slowly. "You were very brave." She shook her head vigorously, tears falling. "I tried, but I couldn't scream. I was so scared. I thought no one would see me." Rex leaned closer, pressing his forehead gently against her shoulder. Her breath steadied a little. "But the dogs, they heard me," she whispered, voice thin, but finally her own. "I didn't know if it would work. I tried tapping like in the videos." Ramirez blinked. "Videos?" The girl sniffled and wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. "Police dog videos. I watch them every night before bed. I saw how they listen to things humans don't, so I thought maybe if I tapped, one of them would hear." Ramirez glanced at Rex, awe flickering across his face. "You signaled them," he said softly. "And they came for you." She nodded, tears dripping down her chin. "They saved me." Then her voice dropped to a whisper that broke every heart around her. "I knew if anyone could hear me, it would be the dogs." Rex lifted his head, nudging her one more time, as if accepting the responsibility she'd placed on him. And for the first time since she'd been taken, the girl managed a real fragile breath. The K-9s hadn't just rescued her. They had been her hope long before the officers ever saw her. The girl's voice faded into the damp city air, fragile but finally free. Officers exchanged shaken glances, absorbing the weight of her confession. But before Ramirez could comfort her further, another officer jogged up, face pale and tense. "Ramirez, we found something." Ramirez's stomach tightened. "Where?" "Behind the cluster. You need to see this." He turned back to the girl gently. "Stay with the dogs, sweetheart. They won't let anyone near you." Rex positioned himself beside her like a stone statue, eyes locked on every movement around them. Ramirez followed the officer behind the cluster. As soon as he stepped past the trees, he stopped dead in his tracks. Lined up in the mud were 3 more ropes, smaller footprints, discarded zip ties, a ripped piece of a child's backpack, tire tracks leading deeper into the city. There had been more than one victim. Ramirez's pulse hammered. "How many?" he whispered. The officer exhaled shakily. "We don't know yet, but this wasn't his first stop, and I don't think she was supposed to be the only one." A sickening realization gripped him. The kidnapper wasn't improvising. He wasn't desperate. He was organized, calculated. The girl wasn't the start of something. She was the escape. Ramirez knelt, touching the mud. The tire tracks were fresh, no more than an hour old. Someone else had left here recently, someone connected to the same operation. The same man who smiled as he was dragged away. The same man who whispered, "You don't know what she is?" Ramirez's jaw tightened. "This is bigger than we thought." When he returned to the park, the girl looked up, hope flickering in her tired eyes. Rex immediately checked her scent, her breathing, the bruises on her wrists, gentle, slow, protective. The other dogs closed in around her, forming a silent circle. Ramirez crouched beside her again. "Sweetheart, I need to ask something important. Was he alone?" Her eyes widened with fear. She shook her head hard. "No, he talked to someone. Someone on the phone?" He said they were coming back. A sharp chill ran through Ramirez. "Coming back?" Before anyone could process the words, dispatch crackled through a portable radio held by one of the officers. "Be advised, a second vehicle matching the suspect description was spotted 20 miles west, heading toward the park area." Every K-9 froze. Rex lifted his head sharply, ears flicking forward. The threat wasn't just real. It wasn't just nearby. It was returning, and the dogs already knew. The city wind picked up again, brushing cool rain across the pavement as officers swarmed the park, preparing for whatever or whoever was coming next. But for a moment, the chaos blurred into the background. All anyone could see was the little girl sitting quietly in the cargo area, her small fingers knotted in Rex's fur. The K-9s remained in formation around her, but the tension in their bodies slowly shifted. They weren't guarding against an immediate attack now. They were comforting her, protecting her in a different way. Rex lay beside her, his steady breathing syncing with hers, calming her trembling shoulders. Ramirez approached gently. "Sweetheart, we're taking you to the station, okay? Somewhere safe. Somewhere he can't find you." She nodded weakly, exhaustion settling into her bones. For the first time since she'd been taken, the fear in her eyes was loosening, replaced with something fragile but real. Trust. As officers lifted her from the cargo area, she reached out instinctively. Not for Ramirez, not for the paramedics, for Rex. The big German shepherd trotted beside her, refusing to let the distance grow even an inch. His presence was a shield, a reassurance, a silent promise. At the ambulance door, she tugged gently on Ramirez's sleeve. "Can Rex come with me?" she whispered, voice trembling. Ramirez exchanged glances with another handler. Normally the answer would be no, but today wasn't normal. "Yeah," Ramirez said softly. "He can ride with you." The girl's relief cracked into the first real smile she'd shown all day. Small, watery, heartbreaking. Inside the ambulance, she held on to Rex's collar like it was the only anchor keeping her steady. The door closed, the siren started, and slowly the vehicle pulled away. Hours later, when the sun had dipped below the horizon and the city cooled into shades of gray and neon, Ramirez walked into the station lobby. Rex trotted beside him, tail swaying gently. They had been called in, not for danger this time, but for something else, something softer. The little girl sat on a bench, wrapped in a blanket, cheeks still streaked from tears, but eyes brighter now. When she saw Rex, she ran, not with fear but with hope, and threw her arms around his neck. Then she handed Ramirez a folded paper. "This is for him," she said softly. Ramirez opened it. Inside, written in shaky handwriting, were only 6 words. "Tell the dogs, they saved me." Ramirez swallowed hard. Rex nudged the girl's shoulder, licking a tear from her cheek.